un-American. And Tucker, it's not even about Donald Trump. It's about every American, because if they can do it to Trump, they can do it to you. And this is something that's bigger than partisan politics. Yes, I would like to defeat Donald Trump in this primary and in the election, but I want to do it by convincing every voter to vote for me, because at the end of the day, the American people get to decide who governs this country, not a politicized prosecutor. And if you want to know how it's politicized, this was a prosecutor who's effectively fulfilling a campaign promise that he made. If it's any individual citizen and a prosecutor campaigns on indicting him or investigating him, that itself is politicized, let alone when he's the lead member of the opposition party to the ruling party that's in power. And we are not a country, Tucker. Whoever we are as a country, it's not a country that allows police power to be used by the ruling party to arrest its political opponents. Yet that's exactly what happened today. And I don't care if you're on the left or the right, turn the table, wear the shoe on the other foot. The other side would be complaining. You know what? The same principles apply in reverse as well. It's a sad day, and I'm worried for the future of the country, because I do think we're skating on thin ice right now.
And you wonder about motive. I mean, so on Monday, Christian children were killed by a trans activist, and the White House immediately defended trans activists and said they're the real victims here. Now, Thursday, you see Democrats indict the Republican frontrunner. It almost feels like they're pushing the population to react. We think they're demoralized and passive. Let's see if they really are. I mean, at what point do we conclude they're doing this in order to produce a reaction?
Well, you know, if you're skating on thin ice, you don't take a hammer to that thin ice and crack it.
That's right.
Joe Biden actually ran on the promise of uniting this country. There's nothing more unifying he could do in his 4 years in office than to get on TV tonight and say that, you know what, Joe Biden, I want to defeat Donald Trump in this general election, but I still condemn this politicized prosecution. It's not just the fact that he's not doing it, Tucker. It's the fact that this is part of an immune system of the government, federal government, state government. Our entire system has an immune reaction to an outsider that actually wants to reform the system. And one way or another, by high water or not, they were going to come for him. And in the end, it's not about Trump. It's about every American who's represented by Trump in the system. That's exactly who they're coming after. And that's why I'm so keen on saying this as an opponent of Donald Trump. Those of us who have standing and credibility competing against him in this election, we have a special responsibility, Joe Biden included, to call out this politicized rules of the road. Imagine if Bush or Cheney had gone after John Kerry over some technical campaign finance violation. There's no doubt that every liberal in this country would instantly see the constitutional problem. Well, it applies in reverse as well, and they would have been right. But I think we as Republicans and as Democrats together need to put aside partisanship and call out this politicized prosecution, persecution through prosecution, for what it is.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I would defend them. I defended Hillary Clinton when the FBI director tried to tank her presidential campaign with that ridiculous press conference. I despise Hillary Clinton, but I care about the system more than any individual. And clearly you do too. And I appreciate your coming on tonight. And immune system response is the perfect description of what we're watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Whitlock is a frequent guest on the show for a reason. He brings insight that few others have. He's host of Fearless. He joins us tonight in the wake of what seems like momentous news. Jason, what's your reaction to this?
Tucker, I hear you loud and clear. I've been watching all week. You've been doing a marvelous job. I do think all of this is tied together. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee, where we had a transgender person murder 3 young children. Today in our state capital, which is right here in Nashville, the transgender anti-gun crowd took over the House for a time. And then by the time I get home, I find out Donald Trump has been indicted. And I hear you loud and clear. They are agitating for unrest. That's the only way to interpret this. They are agitating for unrest, and there is a godless element in this country that doesn't care about fairness. They don't care about the will of the people. They care about power and control. As you have spelled out this week, they think they're God. And they don't think they can make up the rules. They can decide what fairness is. They don't have a biblical worldview, and it's sickening for me. I'm upset. I'm emotional. I'm ready for whatever's next. And I hope every other man out there watching this show, I hope you're ready for whatever's next. If that's what they want, let's get to it.
It feels like this is not the behavior of people who want the current system to continue. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, they don't like our Judeo-Christian founding. That's why they don't like the founding fathers. That's why they want to overthrow the Constitution that is laced with biblical values and biblical principles. They want a Marxist, godless, communist country. Plain and simple, clear as day, with the alphabet mafia, this LGBTQ alphabet mafia in control. The godless people that you're talking about that are totally antithetical to Christianity and biblical values wants control and is seizing control, and they feel like taking down Donald Trump and beating everyone else into submission and just making them give up. It's just better. Give up on Donald Trump, give up on... Tucker, I don't say this with pride. I really don't. I'm just being factual. I've never voted. And so I'm not saying that with pride. I'm hardcore MAGA tonight. I will be voting. I am hardcore MAGA. I've never voted. I did, I observed Trump. I'm somewhat supportive of Trump, but they have made me MAGA. And they have made me ready for whatever is next, because what they are building for young people, I can't sit by and just let it happen without raising my voice and without being willing to sacrifice whatever so that kids don't live in a communist Marxist society. These people that think the government is going to take care of them don't understand history, that they've never studied history. They don't understand how tyrannical a government is. If they have their way, if they have their way, we're all catching hell except for the elites. And yes, I have a very good bank account and perhaps I'm an elite, but my heart is working class. My parents were factory workers. I came from nothing in this country. I'm black. They're telling everybody, black kid, oh, you can't come from nothing and make it in this country. That's bullshit. This country is the greatest country in the history of the planet. It's the safest, most prosperous place for black people and all people. That's why people are beating down the doors to get here. And they've demonized the whole thing, and they've turned Trump into this devilish Luciferian character when they are the devils. They're the ones that don't believe in God.
Jason Whitlock. I agree. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
A Fox News alert for you. Reports indicate that Donald Trump will be fingerprinted, photographed, and possibly handcuffed. He has been told to surrender early next week in New York City. Obviously, this is a humiliation ritual. The question is, how do we respond as Americans who are trying to be decent and measured and keeping, as always, the interests of our children and our grandchildren in mind, in the hope of continuing what we have, which is great. Harris Faulkner thinks that way. She is the host of Faulkner Focus, the co-host of Outnumbered, our friend. She joins us tonight. Harris, thanks so much for coming on. Give us your thoughts about where we are and how we should respond.
Well, first of all, just on the heels of what Jason Whitlock said, and I think we worked in Kansas City at the same time, if I'm remembering correctly. He was in sports, very talented guy. America right now is just watching a moment we've never seen before. There were two former vice presidents who were indicted, one back in 1832, and then, of course, Spiro Agnew under Nixon. And so we have seen that happen before, but a sitting president was impeached more than once and then became an ex-president, and they're still going after him. And I have to tell you, sitting on the couch of Outnumbered earlier today, his former press secretary, of course, is my co-host, one of them, I said to Kayleigh McEnany, there's no way they indict former President Trump because this case is so weak. I've had expert after expert on my show, Tucker, and I watch your show, and they're all saying, if the federal government didn't want to run this case, if the former DA of Manhattan, Cy Vance, didn't run this case, if there were employees that were quitting when Alvin Bragg came on in 2022 and he said, I'm not going to do criminal charges against Trump, and they said, oh, how can you not do that? We quit if you're not going to go after him. And then Bragg says, well, I just want to make sure the case is strong enough to win. I think it's more about dates on the calendar. Where are we now? We're getting closer to a time that Joe Biden might want to announce. He's out on that 20-day, trip trying to convince people that inflation isn't high and that the prices that they're seeing for the cost of everything, including everything they put in their mouths, is actually an illusion. So while he's out there doing that, this is going on. I don't believe in coincidences, but let me just do a little housekeeping because you brought up some important points. Are we going to see this president in handcuffs? Let me tell you who's in charge. It's the Secret Service. They will take the lead of all of the police forces. The NYPD can, as I understand it, take care of security out on the street. And New York State court officers will take care of security inside the courthouse. But the former president of the United States will be protected, as always, by Secret Service. They will, quote unquote, set the tone. This is according to sources close to Fox News. They will mention the instance or the decision of a handcuff or not to handcuff the president. They will make those types of determinations. So that's what America may see. They may see a Secret Service that decides we don't need to see him in handcuffs. And we may even see a situation where this case falls apart. And then you have Democrats who've been kind of, more than leaning to the notion that maybe we don't wave any flags yet. Like Senator Manchin of West Virginia, who said just recently, I think that there are many reasons why Donald Trump should not be the next president again, but you should not allow the court system to be perceived as basically a political pawn. Senator Tina Smith, Democrat from Minnesota, says there's no need to wave any flags here. Being indicted is a terrible thing if that happens. So this was a couple of days ago. Chairman of House Judiciary, Jim Jordan, told me, Harris, on your show, let's reveal to the public now the letter that we're sending from several House committees. Republicans are Oversight, Administration, Judiciary, calling Alvin Bragg to the Hill so they can talk to him. They want to see all the communications, Tucker, between the DA's office here in Manhattan and the federal government. And was there any sort of, now they didn't use this word, but you and I can use it because we know the meaning of collusion. Did they work together on the timing of this? Are there any communications to show that? That's what Chairman Jim Jordan is going after. There are a lot of things that are going to be at play. So before America gets ready to prep itself for what it might see, we don't know yet. A lot can happen. By the way, they're taking some time off in this case because they have to do other things. We don't know what those other things are. And this indictment was filed under seal. Maybe an announcement of exactly what will come in it will happen within days because he's likely to be arraigned, according to Fox sources, by next Wednesday. We're watching all of it. Now the positive. We live in the best country on the planet. And I love just then, and I didn't get to hear all of what Jason said, Jason Whitlock, but I heard the part about faith. We know who we are. We're strong. We're patriotic. We know the difference between right and wrong. Let's be patient and let this play out.
Harris Faulkner for us tonight. Thank you for all of that. It was great to see you.
God bless you.
God bless. So when the history of cable news is written, assuming anyone bothers to write it, but if it ever is written, Glenn Beck will have his own chapter as possibly the greatest synthesizer of big ideas ever to appear on camera. And a lot of people made fun of Glenn Beck over the years for that, but if you go back and watch the tape, you will find out that maybe more than any other person on television, Glenn Beck got it right. Again and again and again. So we thought tonight is the perfect opportunity to hear from him. He's the co-founder of Blaze Media. He's just written a book called The Great Reset, and he joins us now for an overview of what we're watching. Glenn Beck, thank you so much for coming on tonight. How
thank you.
Would you
very
interpret
kind of you
this?
To say.
Well, it's true.
So let me, I've got a couple of things here for you. Let me just go through. I'm going to bring I think, a different perspective to this. We have the banking crisis. They say it's fine. It's just beginning. Yesterday, we had the Saudis and Brazil and China enter a deal to where The petrodollar is over. Brazil and China are going to trade in their own currency. That's the beginning of the end of our currency. That means a dollar collapse. That means we become Venezuela. We will have war with China. We will have war with Russia and Iran. We have the restrict bill. We have social media and our NSA and everybody else in bed with each other, silencing people. We, of course, have the raccoon dogs, which we all know is bullcrap. And now this week, we have a new gun grab that they're trying to do. Biden and his family taking money from the Chinese. What do you think this Donald Trump thing is really all about? The America that we knew, the fundamental transformation that started in 2008 is finished. We are no longer viewed as a superpower. We are now an elderly, we're Joe Biden just walking into the twilight. What this is all about, I believe, is trying to inflame this country. They've wanted violence from the right from the beginning. They can't wait it. They need it, because if we strike out, look at January 6th, the day they're letting the shaman out of prison because it was all trumped up. Thank you, Tucker Carlson, for revealing this. The day they're letting him out, they do this to Donald Trump. They want you to strike out. Why? Because then they can close the cage. I'm going to make another prediction for you, Tucker. You said I got it right. Well, everything I've been talking about since 2008, this is the time. I'm going to make a prediction. By 2025, we are going to be at war. We are going to have a new dollar, a currency that probably is coming from the central bank. We'll have a currency collapse, and we will live in a virtual police state. I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people. It's not far off. The Bill of Rights is gone. Nobody is paying attention. Where are the Republicans? Where are the decent Democrats that can see this is insanity? Donald Trump, the reason why this is going to help Donald Trump, and that's why I don't think they're doing it so he can't run. They're doing it because they want people to strike out. Please turn to God, repent, pray for our country, pray for peace. Put on the full armor of God. But here's what they miss. Donald Trump is not even a person anymore. He is a symbol. He is a symbol of the average, everyday guy that keeps getting screwed every single time. Watches other people screw up big banks, screw up their companies, and get away with it. They see people all the time doing stuff that they know if they did, they'd be in prison for 20 years. But because they're not part of the elite, they get away with it. Donald Trump has taken arrow after arrow, and that's why this is the way the average American feels tonight. Yeah. I hope that there's a few Democrats out there, but this guy has been taking the bullets for the average person now for years. And people on the right feel like he's the only guy that really gets what the people are feeling. And it's not gonna end well for the Democrats in the next election. It's just not. I don't know if Donald Trump is the winner or not, but I will tell you this: you're not going to stop 100 million people. This country is in shambles. And there's going to be 100 million people that will walk on broken glass and through fire to vote for someone other than this corrupt banana republic administration.
That's, I think, exactly right. Glenn Beck, wow. I'm going to be processing that for a couple days. I really appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker. Thank you.
So I think it's become pretty obvious to anyone who's paying close attention and being honest with himself that what you're seeing is not really a contest between Republicans and Democrats, the left and right. It's a contest between the people in charge and everybody else. It's not actually partisan in a traditional sense. There's really one party on the big issues being economics and foreign policy. There's total agreement in Washington. And so once you understand that, then you can go backward into recent history and reassess a lot of the things that you saw through a very different lens. And one of those things is the imprisonment of the Democratic governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. And in retrospect, it's very obvious that he was sent to prison for political reasons, incarcerated for 8 years on bogus corruption charges. His case is a lot more interesting than most people understand. He's learned a lot. He just responded to the indictment of Donald Trump. This is the Democratic former governor of Illinois. And he wrote this, quote, "President Trump fired me, freed me, and now he's getting effed like me. Weaponized prosecutors are destroying our country. It's time for Republicans and Democrats to stand up and defend our Constitution against third world politics." Really a view that speaks for probably the majority in this country. Rod Blagojevich, the former governor, joins us now. Governor, thank you so much for coming on. So tell us I think that tweet kind of summarizes it pretty well, but expand on that a little bit, given your own experience with a similar prosecution.
Well, I had the misfortune of being arrested as a sitting governor at 6 o'clock in the morning. When my little girls, 5 and 12 years old, were asleep, hadn't gotten up yet for school. And then it was a major event, and I was allegedly trying to sell President-elect Obama's Senate seat. It was a political deal. Obama started the whole thing, sent an emissary to me to talk about a political deal. The appellate court eventually reversed the sale of the Senate seat. It was a big lie, but Winston Churchill said a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. And so I see what they're doing to President Trump, and it's more than deja vu all over again to me. I don't like what they did to me. I would never give in. I fought back, and as a result, for political things, no one even alleges I took a penny. They gave me a 14-year sentence and put me in a higher security prison where no governor's been, where my home was a 6-foot by 8-foot prison cell, and I was in there with people who committed murder because they were trying to squeeze me. And they gave me this long sentence, I truly believe, to bury me and with it the truth, because it was a corrupt prosecution. They tried me twice, used an unlawful standard to get convictions at a second trial when they couldn't convict me on their fake charges the first trial. And they did it to a Democrat governor at the AAA level. What they're doing now to President Trump at the major league level is not only frightening, but this is probably, I would say, the most threatening thing to our republic since South Carolina fired shots at Fort Sumter that started the Civil War. This is a very serious thing. And I would say to my fellow Democrats, I was a Democratic governor, the first one to endorse President Obama. I supported Nancy Pelosi when I was a member of Congress. I would say to my fellow Democrats, put your country above your hatred for Trump and be against this weaponization of prosecutions by political people who have uncontrolled power and are going to destroy our freedoms.
One thing I noticed, and thank you for saying that, and I hope you're not the last Democrat who stands on principle and defends our system, but one of the things I noticed in your prosecution was that nobody defended you. And once you're accused of a crime, very few people stand up or even bother to assess the actual evidence. I was one of them. I had no idea what had happened to you. It took me years to figure it out. I'm embarrassed by that. But I wonder if being accused alone isn't a kind of sentence for the person accused.
It's awfully hard when they accuse you like that, and they did with me. I was Roger Stone before Roger Stone. They arrested me with SWAT teams around my house. I was a sitting governor. And they did it with a massive press conference, and they said they were, quote unquote, stopping a crime spree before it happened. Now, they played 1% of FBI tapes that they recorded, and to this day, they're still covering up the other 99% of the tapes. And in my life experience, and I know for a fact what's on those tapes, that the side that covers up the truth is the side that's lying. And the reason they won't play those tapes is because they're covering up what they did to me. It was a frame-up. It was no different from a dirty cop who plants a murder weapon in the glove compartment to frame an innocent man. And they did it to a governor, and they felt emboldened. It was a test case for them, and now they're doing it to an American president. And I love my country. It was some bad people in government that did it to me, and I cry for my country when I see what's happening now, that they would do something like this to an American president, irrespective of what party he or she is from.
That's right. That's right. The side that is covering up evidence is the side that's lying. You really need to just put that on the refrigerator, because that is always true. Former Governor Rod Blagojevich joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So as you know, a grand jury in Manhattan has voted today to indict the frontrunner in the Republican field for president in 2024, Donald Trump. CNN is reporting that Trump is facing 34 counts of, quote, falsifying business records. Those would be misdemeanors that have been transmogrified into felonies somehow. Apparently, this is related, and again, we don't have the text of the indictment, but it is apparently related to Donald Trump's alleged payment to Stormy Daniels 7 years ago. Trump says he did not use campaign funds for that payment. We can be pretty sure he didn't, because if he had, he'd be charged for misusing donor money, and the Federal Election Commission would have pounced on him years ago. So we can be certain, pretty much, that Trump used personal funds. At the time, federal regulators who were in charge of looking into this did look into it and determined it was not a crime. But now the Manhattan DA, who was, like so many DAs who've inspired the crime wave we're now suffering through, was backed by George Soros, has decided to prosecute the Republican frontrunner for this. So it raises the question, who exactly is this Manhattan DA? His name is Alvin Bragg. He's a rich kid, product of private schools and Harvard. But what should we know about him as we enter what is certain to be a history-changing spectacle in the next several weeks? Fox's Kevin Corke has been looking into the story. He joins us tonight. Hey, Kevin.
Evening, Tucker. Alvin Bragg has been ridiculed by critics for even pursuing these charges because others, including the Southern District and others, have had a chance to bite that apple, have bypassed on it, and because of the weakness, presumably, of any particular case. But for the man you see here leaving work tonight with massive security presence, well, he's also the same man who campaigned on what some called a Get Trump platform. This indictment for him, they argue, to critics, is a win no matter what, because it's not about the win, and that's the point. By the way, Bragg has been on the job since 2022. He won election back in November of 2021, taking over for the retiring Cy Vance. And his career includes time as a federal prosecutor. He was also an assistant AG for the state of New York and a civil rights attorney. And remember this, he does have a tie to George Soros, at least indirectly, because Soros donated to a very liberal group that endorses progressive prosecutors. And that group, you'll recall, used a significant portion of their money to support Bragg in his 2021 campaign. Now, Bragg has done something no DA has ever done. And the fear tonight, Tucker, is many others will now follow suit, presuming that turnabout is fair play, which means it's not just a Trump problem, probably. This could be a problem for a number of American politicians moving forward, including presidents. Tucker?
Kevin Corke, thank you so much.
You bet.
So we've been asking tonight, how will Democrats respond to this? And we're getting an early answer now. We're going to read this just as from a text. This is from MoveOn.org, which is one of the biggest Democratic political organizing groups in the country. And they've sent a mass text to their members, and we're quoting from it here. Trump is the first former president in history to be indicted. It's an important step to try to preserve